Yesterday's episode, we explored the sun. It's your inner spark. It's your energy levels, whether you're energized or depleted. And we touched a little bit on how to tune into that. Today, we're talking about Mercury, your own internal processor. Welcome to the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. In our last episode, we were looking at the sun, and we even touched on how to tune in to recognize your own natural energy. Not just whether you're tired or you're hyped, but what depletes you and what energizes you. And we just did a little exercise. A lot of people found that very, very helpful. Today, we're going to talk about Mercury and how it is how you input information and kind of feel into the sun and then export that information out into the world. Remember, the inner planets actually all weave and work together. Nothing is like cogs in a machine. You know, the hip bone's connected to the thigh bone, basically. Everything works together in a singular integrated system. So get your tea, get your coffee, get your matcha, get your Red Bull, get your H2O. And whether we're driving to work, we're taking the kids to school, whether we're out grocery shopping, folding the laundry, taking the hot girl, hot guy walk, going to the dog park, or putting the kitty in the backpack, we're going to do this together. And you'll get perfect parking. Let's talk about Mercury. All right. The thing we need to understand about Mercury is that it works with the sun. It's closest to the sun in the solar system. And I know there's going to be people out there going, you're confusing astronomy and astrology. And yet, like I talked about in the last episode, astronomy and astrology dovetail. They were the same subject until the 18th century. That's the 1700s. During the Age of Reason, science and the arts kind of split apart, but we still need to consider astronomy when we do astrology. How fast are the planetary orbits? How long do they stay in a sector of the sky? And how close are they together? Last episode, I talked a little bit about how Mercury borrows gravity from Venus to keep it spinning on its own axis. So if you think of the sun as your core energy, your vitality, and your personal will, then we have to think about Mercury being that which helps inform that personal will and how it expresses it out in the world. So Mercury is the planet that's going to translate that energy into thought, interpretation, consciousness, and your decision making. Understanding Mercury allows you to understand and use your physical energy deliberately rather than reacting automatically to the world around you. I'm sure you've heard that your perceptions shape your reality. So have you ever thought of something and just the idea of it made you tired? Maybe you've been looking out at world events and you're just like, ugh, you woke up in great shape and then you read a headline and all of a sudden your energy level just goes dunk. That would be Mercury communicating to your sun things that doesn't resonate well with it. So here's what we want to understand about Mercury. Okay. Mercury is a translator. It's both a receiver and a transmitter. So think of it like kind of like a two-way radio. It doesn't generate any energy. It interprets and communicates what your system experiences. And it translates signals from your body, your senses, and your desires into meaning and potential action. Observing Mercury helps you notice your mental patterns, assumptions, automatic interpretations that either support or drain your sun. Example, your sun feels depleted after a long day. Mercury might say, I'm not capable of doing this task, which could either trigger a reaction or allow you to make a deliberate choice or response aligned with your vitality, or even influence your vitality. So maybe you read the news and it depleted you. Now that could stop your whole day. It could take you off track. How many times has it done that? But if you understand what vitalizes you, You can then go seek out maybe a funny video that makes you laugh and it boosts your energy a little bit so you can finish that one last thing when you get home from work. We can be deliberate in our use of our natural makeup. Now, the sign and house that Mercury is in is going to inform how you input and output information using your Mercury, and also in the Planet of the Month Club Mercury video. So let's talk about Mercury and conscious choice. Mercury acts as a bridge between energy and action. So think of it kind of like air traffic control a little bit. Mercury governs your nervous system and your brain. And no, if you have it retrograde in your chart, it doesn't make you slower or faster than anyone else. It makes you maybe a little more reflective. Mercury acts as a bridge, and it receives signals from the physical energy, that's the sun, and the experiences, the sensing, feeling experiences of the moon. That helps inform your Mercury. And your Mercury and your moon talk a lot, even if they're not technically aspected. It creates a narrative or a story or an interpretation. And we know that the stories we tell ourselves are what shape our reality because our stories come from our perception. So change your perception, change your story, you change your reality. And it helps you guide decisions and communication to bring attention to the things that matter most or to the people that you need to communicate with. So let's talk about when we're unconscious or instinctive and we're talking about Mercury. Thoughts could reinforce depletion or stress. You know, maybe you have a conflict with someone that's ongoing, probably a family member, could be somebody you've known a long time, and you think it's going to change, and you enter in, maybe they don't like the same things as you, and you're really excited you're going to go to a concert, and you're like, I'm going to this concert, and they're like, well, I don't like that person, and you get depleted. And one of the reasons you might get depleted isn't so much that you need them to agree with you on that person's music that you're going to listen to, but maybe it's them just not being happy that you're going. You're seeking that approval. And it's kind of like being Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football, right? You keep going to them every single time and Lucy keeps ripping the football away. And then you fall on your back. There's other ways to make that decision. We don't have to keep repeating the pattern. Your decisions might be reactive versus aligned with what actually works for you. So, like, you may just reflexively call them up or text them to tell them that you're going to do something. And then you don't get the reaction you want out of them. And then you're like, why do I do this? I do this to myself every time. And then wash, rinse, and repeat, right? That's when we're acting out of a really ingrained pattern, like a family pattern or a cultural pattern. We keep seeking that approval. And Venus keeps getting disappointed, and so does the moon. And then that causes a reaction, and that chain reaction kind of messes up our day. So here's something that's going to be a little different when it's consciously applied. So when Mercury is operating consciously, when you're being more deliberate and on purpose, your thoughts are going to be more in support of your vitality and your purpose. So you might feel a little depleted as you're watching the news or you're scrolling through TikTok or you're watching Instagram reels and you're like, that doesn't feel very good. I'm starting to feel very depleted. I'm getting overstimulated or I'm feeling really low. I need to do something else. It's recognizing it instead of continuing on with the doom scroll. You can translate impulses into intentional action. Once you recognize you're being depleted, you can do that where to next step we talked about in the last episode. So here's some things you can do over the next couple of days. And I really suggest having a journal to journal your processes. These are things that I have my students use in the Living by Luna process, the Making Moves by the Moon, which is using the lunar transits to help plot your entrepreneurial journey. And then also in the Healing the Money one, we do a lot of observation and journaling so that you can know the answers that best suit you, not just me giving you a glib answer of what placement means what in general, right? You want specific answers just for you. And the only way you can do that is by using your Mercury to observe. So we want to observe your mental patterns that arise when your sun is low versus high in energy. What are your thoughts like? And I don't mean you're tired. Okay, you're physically tired. It's the end of the day. But you could. It could just be when you're not as buoyant. So maybe you're just kind of maybe there was some news that came in and it just, notice what kind of thoughts are running through your mind. It could be like nothing ever gets better. Things are just getting worse. Every day is another shit show. Things like that. Versus when your energy is up a little higher, what kind of thoughts could you get? Like, oh, wow, it's a really beautiful day. That person's smiling at them. Notice what you're noticing when you're in these different energy levels. When you notice, you have a power of choice. When you can be like, oh, I like this way better than that way. Because then your Mercury is working with your Venus and your moon in a way that's productive versus reinforcing old patterns on a default setting. So we're going to do a practical Mercury exercise in this episode to get a good feel or a knowing of how your personal Mercury operates. So if you're driving, you probably don't want to do this exercise. Wait till you get your perfect parking. Okay. So you want to pause and observe your thoughts without judgment. This is really, really important. We often moralize. Like if you have some stinking thinking going on and you think, oh man, I'm always a loser, or I never get it right, or I overcomplicate things, or I don't know why I keep saying that stuff. I open my mouth and stuff just comes out. That's judging yourself. Let's not judge ourselves. Let's just notice like, oh, those thoughts are less energizing. Notice less energizing is just an observation. It's not a moral judgment. These thoughts are more energizing. This is going to help you get the ball rolling a lot more effectively and productive. So ask yourself, what is my mind telling me about my energy right now? So let's say, again, it's been a long day at work. You come home, you drop your keys in a mud puddle. It takes you a minute to find it, and then you drop some important papers. And notice the thought process. And then you just have the dropsies and the klutsies all the way through the evening. You even maybe go to make yourself a hot toddy and it spills all over the floor and you have to clean it up. And you're like, damn it, right? But you could also come home kind of feeling in a good mood. Things kind of went your way. You got perfect parking to start your day. You get home, everything's doing really good. Your keys are in your hand. You get in the door. The kids are doing their homework. You're in shock, but happy. You get into the kitchen and you just feel like making cookies and everything's okay. Yes, I'm fascinated by cookies. Okay. I know I mention cookies every episode, but I've been really good in my diet and I haven't made any, but I really want to make some right now. So notice where your thoughts are then. Oh, I really love everybody. I love my house. My kitchen is really good. I might change it a little bit, but I really love the way my layout is with the island and the stove. And just notice the thoughts running through your head, depending on what kind of energy level you've got. And then one of the things you can do is identify which thoughts reflect automatic reactions and which ones reflect a conscious choice. So is there something you always say? It could be a reflex, like, good job. Maybe you're not really listening. Somebody tells you about their day and you're like, oh, that's really nice. But you're up in your head and you're thinking things and the million things you have to do. And sometimes you stop because you recognize somebody is really intent in having a conversation with you. And you're like, hey, can you clarify tell me more about that. You said you had a really good day. I'd love to hear the details. Tell me more. One is responsive. One is kind of a reflex. So what are your reactionary thoughts? What are your reflexive thoughts? They just kind of happen on reflex. And where are they deliberate? Because you do all of it. Okay. So when you notice that, you start taking control of your mind. For years I've been saying, learn to train your Mercury. That's training your Mercury. And then go out on a limb and reframe one reactive thought into deliberate interpretation that supports your sun's vitality. Okay, your sun's vitality. What will give you more inner reserves, more will, more energy? So if you have a thought that is devitalizing, like, oh man, you are such a freaking klutz, how can you reframe that? Well, when I'm tired, I'm not very good at hanging on to stuff. I'm a little bit of a butterfingers. It's okay. I can clean it off. Which one gives you more energy? Right? It could be something else, but that's a neutral example I can give you. So then once you reframe a thought, then you're going to want to take one small, teeny tiny aligned action based on your new interpretation. So I can clean this off. It might be I need to give myself a minute. Maybe I've been busy all day and I need to eat something first. So this thing that has mud all over it, I'm going to put it where it's really easy to see so don't forget about it. And I can clean it off in a minute. I'm going to go tend to myself and I will come back to this with a different attitude and see what happens. That's one way to take an action on a reframe thought. Okay. So another thing, here's one more example. Instead of thinking I'm too drained to connect with anyone. Okay. Here's another example. Instead of thinking I'm too drained to connect with anyone, you might reframe it into I have energy to respond thoughtfully in one meaningful interaction. So that time you walk in the door and the kids are excited to show you their project they made at school, and your phone is ringing and it's your mother-in-law and the dog is barking and all hell's kind of breaking loose all at the same time. Instead of getting frustrated, take a pause. I have time for one meaningful interaction. I'm going to listen to the kids tell me about their day, or I'm going to tell the kids, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. Bobby the dog needs let out. Can one of you let the dog out? Text your mother-in-law and say, I'll get back to you later tonight. I need to talk to the kids about what happened at school today. They're really excited. We'll chat later. I'll tell you about it later. So that you're taking control of the chaos. Okay? Give that a shot. All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Mercury and its role in your day-to-day life. Mercury is part of what helps us create meaning from experience and translate that energy into life choices. So Mercury is working with the moon and it's working with the sun. It's the messenger, right? It's checking in with Venus and it's translating all of that. And that's why it's really important to understand how to be deliberate in our consciousness. So when we're using Mercury deliberately, we're reducing our reactive cycles. So reframing how we think, how we input information. So the other day I had a rotten day. Like there was just a whole bunch of old stuff up on deck. And at first my consciousness started to go downhill with it. And then I thought about it and I was like, wait, this is a real good opportunity for self-mastery. Things only happen like this when I'm growing. So good. I'm growing. Yay. When you start to reframe your thinking, then you're able to turn your attention into things that benefit you more. So it helps you break your reactive cycles. It helps you preserve your sun's energy. So whether you're, because if you get too depleted, you can get sick because then your body's like, whoa, you got to rest so I can rekindle the flame, right? But also using your Mercury deliberately, you can actually fuel your sun so you maintain a reasonable amount of energy. And it also helps you increase your clarity, your focus, and your efficiency. Now, I was asked, what do people do who are a little neurospicy? Well, I'm neurospicy, so I understand. Learning to train your Mercury might take you more time if you have a very strong focus and you get onto thought pathways that are like in a tractor beam. Okay. They're locked in. It might take you a minute or two to learn how to do that. It could take weeks or months to learn how to reframe. That's okay. This isn't a race. This is about becoming effective, not perfect. Okay. I would say as long as you're able to mostly communicate verbally reasonably well, okay, there are going to be some conditions where you have a unique mental makeup. Maybe you're nonverbal and it is consistent. And if you're listening to this and you're nonverbal, thank you for trusting me. You can still learn to be deliberate in your consciousness. It may be something you learn to do over time and practice. We are not trying to be normative. We are not trying to match society in any way. We are trying to give ourselves more control over how our energy operates so we are more at ease in the body, in the mind, in our emotions. Okay. So this isn't about fitting in. It's not about masking. It's not about getting along. It's about being in control of our own energy levels. Okay. And being able to understand that within yourself is far more important than being able to explain it to the rest of the world. I hope that answers that question. So it just might take smaller, bite-sized chunks of practice that you do more often. I found for me, I had to turn hypervigilance into hyper-awareness. It worked better for my extreme ability to focus because I have the hyper-focus. And I had a very busy brain. It pops like popcorn. Okay, so learning to control and wrangle my thoughts took me quite a long time to do, but I've learned methodology that can help shortcut it so it doesn't take you as long because it was very frustrating. So, but you just want to do time and practice and be gentle with yourself. Over time, operating your Mercury in a conscious way allows your interplanetary system to flow with a little bit more harmony. And again, this isn't about getting along with the outer world. This is about getting along inside of yourself. Okay. Because it's until you're comfortable here is always going to be super uncomfortable as you interact with the rest of the world, regardless of whether you've been diagnosed with having a neurodivergence of some kind or not. Once again, I want to thank patrons for being sponsors of this podcast. Without them, there is no podcast. Make sure you thank our patrons in the comments. If you don't know what Patreon is a platform that allows creators from all manner of disciplines, whether it's rock and roll bands or it's game developers, astrologers with podcasts, to help fund and fuel their passions. You can go to the Awake Space and find our community. It's absolutely amazing. We are there for each other, rain or shine, and helping support one another in our journeys in life and applying astrology every day. So thank you to my patrons for making this podcast possible. In the next episode, we're talking about Venus, the magnetic energy that attracts what nourishes your sun. And the Patreon 1 hour companion episode to this week's series comes out on Friday. So I'm really excited that you'll find that in the patreon.com/awake space. And that will be the patron only podcast this week. And it'll help guide you through everything we've talked about this week and give you some more tools. And I might even have a PDF for you to kind of measure out your Mercury and your thoughts. I think that one's super important. All of these skills help build you up to be able to heal your money wound. When I offer that class, it will help make sense of that. For those of you who've already taken it, you probably recognize some of this, but you're like, it may be helping things click if there were gaps to be filled in. Next episode is all about Venus. I'm super excited about that. Venus is a planet, I think, that doesn't get enough good information given out about it. And it's so powerful. And if Venus isn't aligned, then we tend to exhaust ourselves with acting on Mars out of alignment. So that's coming up next tomorrow.